Hi, everybody. Today is Wednesday, July 15, 2026, and our dear friend, our brother Scott Ritter is here with us. Welcome back. Welcome back, Scott.
Thanks for having me.
Let me start with what's going on. We had the MOU, we had the complexity of the issues with the MOU. None of those lines or clauses were respected, and all of them basically were violated before the two sides announcing that the MOU is over. The United States is back with the blockade in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran is doing the same in the Strait. And last yesterday we had one of these Turkish tankers being sunk in the Persian Gulf in the Strait of Hormuz, and I'm gonna show you the footages, the footages of that ship. But before getting there, Scott, here is the targets. The United States targets are basically they're repeating the same targets in the Persian Gulf. One of the main regions is Syria, and here is one of the footages of Syria yesterday. They hit a military command facility, something like that in Syria, and this is the footage. And the other major point was yesterday we've seen some footages coming out of Bahrain. It shows this, Scott. I want to know what is your understanding of this. Is that it seems to me that it's somehow the air defense system, but because it goes up and comes down. And what is your understanding of this footage? What has happened in the sky here?
That looks like a Patriot missile that self-destructed midair. The looks like it's the fuel of the Patriot missile. You know, the body of the missile just exploded, detonated, and you're seeing the chunks of fuel um, floating in the air. Coming to the ground. I don't know. I mean, the bottom line is I have to see the whole thing to understand it. But that looks like a spectacular failure of the solid rocket booster of the Patriot system.
Because you see the missiles somehow going up and coming down. It's not a cluster warhead to be all coming down, because there were some sort of assumptions that it was a cluster bomb or warhead that was somehow
No,
coming down.
I mean it could be a self-destruct system too. I mean, if it's a missile going up and coming down, the implication it's an air defense missile that went up and broke track, and maybe there's a self-destruct mechanism on board that detonated the booster to prevent the missile from slamming into civilian housing or something of that nature. I don't know. Again, it was shown a small little video clip. I can't give you 100% clarity as to what that video clip means, but to me, it trying to explain that, it would seem like a booster failure of some sort.
Mm. And one of the major targets last night was the attack on Kuwait, which was mentioned by Iranians that it was against Halliburton, an oil service and logistic company with the U.S. government contracts. They call it KGL, and you see this in this picture. And what was that? What was the main reason of hitting this? Was they were telling, IRGC believes that it was one of the largest U.S. military suppliers in Kuwait and one of the largest in the Middle East, which was hit. And then we had this photo from NASA confirming that the fire and in that region is something got hit by Iranian drones, it seems. It was a drone hitting the target. This is the complexity of the issue. Multiple targets were hit in Jordan, in Kuwait, and in Bahrain. And the use of HIMARS was 3 nights before we had the use of HIMARS in Kuwait and in Bahrain hitting the targets in the western part of Iran. How do you see the battlefield?
See the battlefield emerging in an escalatory fashion. I see a lot of emphasis on HIMARS. Why? Because we don't have long range strike weapons, and so The targets that are within the range of HIMARS will be struck by HIMARS so that we can preserve whatever air delivered munitions we have for other targets. And so a heavy emphasis of HIMARS this early in the campaign points to a weapons shortage issue, which again is one of the problems here. What is the United States trying to accomplish with this campaign? They had 39 days to break Iran's back, and they couldn't. Remember, it was the United States that sought out the ceasefire. Donald Trump has admitted we had to sign the MOU because we had no choice. We're running out of oil, and we didn't have the military means to change the reality that Iran controlled the Strait of Hormuz. And J.D. Vance admitted that the MOU is just a charade the whole time, that the goal the whole time is just to buy time to get oil, stored up. But it was also to buy time to get weapons deployed from other parts of the world to the Middle East. But the United States has bought a maximum of 3 weeks, 21 days. So now we're going to try to accomplish in 21 days, which we couldn't accomplish in 39 days, to defeat Iran. And Iran, on the other hand, has had a chance to fully evaluate the previous air campaign, understand targeting priorities, targeting, accuracy. It's what, we, the people, sit back here and we're told the U.S. struck this, that, and the other thing. We don't know what the U.S. struck. You know who knows exactly what the U.S. struck? Iran. They know everything. And so now they'll, again, they're not stupid. I watched the Iraqis do the same maneuver after Desert Storm. They do a full spectrum assessment of the targets struck by the United States, the dates. They know what was going on. So again, they don't need to know what intelligence the U.S. had. They can reverse engineer it let's say it's a target of importance. They can sit there and say, well, how did the U.S. find out about this target? What was happening that could have tipped them off on that? And then they do counterintelligence survey and improve their operational security to minimize target exposure going forward. But they also look at places the U.S. hit that have nothing to do. And I would say 80% of the targets struck by the United States had nothing to do with anything. We just blew up empty buildings. And so they're going to make a determination that was this simply a bad map survey by the United States, some AI generated program scouring maps looking for, something that could be used. Is it something that had historical affiliations? I mean, this is one way you find out. Manab School. Well, we know that Manab School became a school in 2016 and that the U.S. knew about that. So whatever targeting programs being used is scouring data that predates 2016 if they're going to say that was a missile headquarters. And so the Iranians have done their due diligence, I believe, and they have adjusted accordingly. So now, what have we done? If 80% of our targets are bombing nothing, that means that our intelligence isn't that good. Some people could say that maybe we fine-tuned our intelligence in the break between April 8th and now, and that we have a better feel for what the Iranians are doing. Maybe the Iranians made a mistake. Maybe there's something the U.S. is exploiting, but I doubt it. I just think that the United States has fallen back on past practices, and that once again, what we're doing is having zero impact on Iran's ability to respond. Is it causing pain to Iran? Every bomb drop causes pain in one way or another. But is it the kind of pain that's going to cause Iran to break? Because that's what we need Iran to do right now, is break. We need Iran to basically admit that the United States has won this war, that Iran will yield on all of the issues that Donald Trump is insisting Iran yields on. And that's just not going to happen. We don't have the military capability to make this happen. So, now you got to go back and say, well, then why did Donald Trump start this again? I mean, this is the key question. Because if all rational assessments point in the direction of irrational outcomes, meaning we're not going to get what he wants, by repeating a military campaign that failed the first time around with better weaponry, with better preparation. What makes you think we're going to, Einstein famously said, or at least it's been attributed to Einstein, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. Well, clearly, if we're expecting a different outcome, but if we're expecting that this time we're gonna break Iran when nothing's changed, we're insane. And I don't think that we're governed by insane people. I do believe we're governed by desperate people, and we have a hint of the desperation again. With Donald Trump, I had to sign the MOU. He said, I had to sign it. Desperation. He had no choice to sign a document that he didn't like, but he had to sign it to get the oil back up. So we know there's desperation now. And so now what is the source of desperation? He needs the Strait of Hormuz open. That's what he needs. Strait of Hormuz open on his terms. He can't be seen as yielding the strait to Iran because now you set a precedent. All other strategic straits around the world now can be taken over by the regional actors, and that disrupts the United States concept of control of the seas. That's why we are so insistent on freedom of navigation. But Iran now says that the strait belongs to us. Donald Trump needs to change, not the reality, because you can't. Unless Iran is defeated and yields the strait back to anybody but Iran, you're not going to achieve this. Iran will always have the ability to take control of the Strait of Hormuz. So you have to change the perception. And we have some hints again, some hints in this. What was one of the things that Donald Trump, posted? I'm taking control of the strait, he said. I'm taking control. I'm the guardian of the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't know. Is he Rocket Raccoon? Is he Star-Lord? I mean, which one is he? But, the point is, I love that movie. But the point is, he's put that marker on. Then he put a price. Because before he said, it's ridiculous, outrageous that people would charge money to go through this. No, I'm going to charge 20%. 20%. And you're like, okay. Now, we can be critical of Donald Trump. I often am. In fact, I always am. But you have to respect the fact that the man, while I don't agree with him, and I don't agree with just about anything, he got where he is because he's sneaky like a fox. I mean, he's not a good businessman, but he's a New York City businessman, which means he operates with threats and blusters and stuff like that. And it seems to me that he's falling back on his roots, and he's just going in with a strong opener. A strong opener. First of all, understand that he just legitimized putting a price on passage through the strait after he said that was illegitimate. He just legitimized it. He said, nope, this is it. That's important because he just made the Iranians point. He told the Iranians that, I'm just a second. I got someone calling in the middle of an interview. But he told the Iranians that, no, you're right. You can charge, but we're the ones charging. So there's that's an important thing. Nobody's talking about that. Nobody's talking about the fact that Donald Trump just changed the dynamic. And now we put a price on. Now it's way high of a price. The Iranians are like, well, we were charging far less. But that's not the point. The point now is what Donald Trump's trying to do is get a piece of the action. This is classic Donald Trump. He wants a piece of the action. Now, how does he get that? We don't know because this is early on in the negotiations. But I believe the goal here is to cause sufficient economic disruption to the Iranians so that they will accept some sort of compromise deal that gives Donald Trump the face-saving mechanism that says, I negotiated a piece of the action. I'm the greatest president in the world. No one's better than me. Now, we don't know what that will be. I have some ideas because I don't think Iran's going to yield on its willingness to control. But we know that Iran was willing to give Oman a concession there. They said Oman can control the southern route through the strait, and Oman can collect revenues. So maybe a future potential compromise would be that Donald Trump gets a piece of the Omani action. Not the Iranian action, but the Omani action. But the Omani-Iranian control of the straits is still predicated on the fact that Iran gets to determine, what goes through, when what goes through, and how it goes through. This could be a face-saving mechanism because there's nothing else that makes sense. Because Trump isn't going to win, and if he's looking for total control of the strait, he's not going to get it. And the other reality is, the pressures that Donald Trump felt to bring on the MOU back in April, they're even more constrained today. This is more than just about oil for gasoline and diesel. I think most Americans are going, hey, it's all about the price of gas at the pump. Well, it is sort of, but it's about so much more than that. a good deal of the world's fertilizers come out of the Middle East. The raw products, the sulfur, the ammonia. These are all byproducts of this distillation of oil, or the refining of oil. Helium, a critical component. All of these things, they're not getting to market. They didn't get to market. I don't know about you, but if I look outside, I tend to see farm fields in my area. That means crops have gone in.
A lot.
Hmm?
Here in Brazil, a lot. You can see a lot.
But what happens if these crops don't get the fertilizer? We get crop failure. That's going to happen. Now there's different planting season around the world, but the point is, fertilizers not getting produced in the quantities necessary to sustain the pace of agriculture necessary to feed 8 billion people. 8 billion, I think, is the world's population right now. What happens if we don't produce the food? People starve to death. And when people start to starve to death, you start getting mass migration, because people just don't sit there and starve to death silently. They will start moving. Europe is going to be overrun, literally overrun, with desperate migrants from Africa and from Asia, from the Middle East, who are all going to be going to Europe to eat their food. If they can't eat the European food, they'll eat the Europeans, because they're going to need to eat something. Russia's okay. Russia produces its own fertilizer. Russia's never going to run out of this kind of stuff. The United States is okay. Europe is okay until it gets overrun. But the rest of the world that needs all this stuff, and this is a point that Sergei Lavrov just made when he traveled in Africa. He says, you're going to starve to death because of them, because of the United States, because of Ukraine. They're the ones. Ukraine is stopping our ability to send food to you. The United States is stopping your ability to get the fertilizers. Now, we'll provide what we can, but the U.S. sanctions us. This is not a good look for the United States. So it's more than just about gasoline and diesel. This is about the things that make life sustainable. And we already blocked them, their ability to be brought to market for 39 days and more. There's been more disruptions. We didn't resolve the blockaded stuff until later, and then it's been hit and miss. But the world got a little bit of a breather, but that's like, I'll give you an example from my own life. I used to body surf as a kid. I lived in Hawaii. I loved body surfing. I wasn't very good at it, but I loved doing it. And I would go out there in the big waves, and and then you invariably, the wave puts you down. And when the wave puts you down, it puts you down on the bottom. You're getting bounced off the seafloor. You're floating around, and you're just trained to basically let go, hold your breath, and wait until the wave lets go. Don't fight the wave, because that exhausts you. Just let it do it thing, and then come up and get a breath of air, get reoriented, and try to go in. But if the wave holds you down long enough, when you come up, right when you're getting ready to take that breath, boom, you get hit with the next wave, and back down you go. But this time you don't have the oxygen in your lungs that you needed. You're in trouble. And so now you're waiting, but now you're starting to get desperate. You come up and you're ready to take that sip. Boom, the third wave hits you. You can drown very easily. The world is being hit by waves of insufficient resources. The world got slammed by a wave. They came up to try and take a sip to get stuff released to market and all that. Their body thought, oh, we're getting a full breath of air. You're not. Bam, you're down. The world can't take too much more of this. Donald Trump is getting ready to unleash a massive wave on the global. It's not just the global energy market, it's global survival market. At a time when the world needs a full breath, full lungs, and the world's not going to get it. Donald Trump has the potential of killing billions of people. I mean, if there's a global crisis, Donald Trump will be the reason, only Donald Trump. So, this is very serious stuff. And I think Donald Trump's betting on the fact that there will be nations out there who will put pressure on Iran and say, no, you've got to find a compromise. I don't know what the solution is. I don't know if Iran's willing to do that, but I am betting on the fact that China, if this war goes on for 3 weeks, China's going to be picking up the phone telling the Iranians, we got to find a way to get resources flowing. Russia's going to also be saying, this long-term instability is not good for us. We need stable markets. Everybody's like, well, wait a minute, Scott, Russia makes a lot of money with high oil prices. 20% of their GDP comes from the sale of oil or energy. 80% of it depends on investments in normal economic activity. You don't get investments with high energy prices. That's what people don't understand. Watch Landman. I mean, Billy Bob Thornton is out there. His character, whoever wrote that, some of those scripts are brilliant. Talk about the importance of oil and things of that nature. High oil prices are bad, very bad. It's a short-term gain for some people, but when the prices come down, if they go down too low, all that money you made is gone. They need stability. They need that sweet spot. And Russia needs that sweet spot for long-term investment viability. Russia's seeking investments into Russia. Russia needs energy markets stable so that the people have stable economic foundations upon which to build their investment stake. So I think Russia will be picking up the phone. China will be picking up the phone. India will be picking up the phone. Everybody will be picking up the phone saying, hey, we got to find a way out of it, just like they did last time. Because remember, Iran took extraordinarily hardline positions, but they agreed to an MOU. They knew U.S. was going to break, by the way. They knew it. But they agreed to it because there was political pressure placed on Iran. I believe there will continue to be political pressure placed on Iran, and that Iran will eventually be compelled to offer a compromise. Iran's not going to yield on major issues. They're not going to give up the Strait of Hormuz. They're not going to yield on their nuclear program. They're not going to yield on ballistic missiles. But if there's a face-saving mechanism, give Donald Trump a piece of the Omani action. Maybe. I don't know. But this war makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. There's nothing logical about this conflict because Donald Trump isn't going to get what he wants, and he's putting the entire world at risk. This is what people need to understand. This is putting the Iranian economy at risk or the Middle East economy at risk. He's putting billions of lives at risk. Billions of lives.
Yeah. He said yesterday that he's going to escalate the war because his policy of getting back with the blockades to coerce Iran and somehow putting pressure on Iranian to force them into some sort of deal. He said, if I cannot get the deal as soon as possible, I'm going to attack next week. I'm going to attack the power grids. I'm going to attack the infrastructures in Iran. This is the plan on his part. And what would be the reaction on the part of Iran? And they're going to hit the same sort of targets in other.
But here's the beauty of it. I mean, they've already sort of given up. We have 3 weeks of supply. So we have phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Right now it's phase 1. We're striking targets, making things go boom. It's not going to work. So next week we go to phase 2, which is we bring in energy target, not energy production, but energy facilities. The electricity generation, things of that nature, to increase the ping. And then we shift over to the final phase, week 3, and that's it. After week 3, we got nothing. We run out of ammo. Week 3 is to strike energy production facilities, to bring the pain, as he said. And so what he's hoping is that the Iranians think that he's not bluffing. But all Iran has to do is ride it out. And we don't have that much ammunition. So if I were the Iranians, they know what to do, but high value, irreplaceable infrastructure, remove it, hide it, shut everything down. Let the United States blow up a facility that can be rapidly repaired. Because remember, after week 3, we're out of ammunition. And then if Iran can reconstitute, we can't build more ammunition this time period. They can get their economy back up and running. The Iranians can ride this thing out. I think that's the reality. Then the question is, Israel's sitting there like, an unspent force. Now, Donald Trump is claiming to be putting pressure on them to keep them out of Lebanon to, solve that. But the fact is, when we run out of ammunition, we may say, Israel, you come in. You're phase 4. Phase 4 is Israel comes in and resumes the bombing campaign. And how long can Israel go? A couple more weeks till they run out of ammunition. But I think they're gambling on the fact that Iran doesn't have the ability to sustain this fight, that there will be political pressure put on Iran, and that Iran maybe doesn't have any missiles. Maybe somebody has done an assessment that said we killed more missiles, even though everybody says no, the Iranians have a lot of missiles. I don't know. I don't know what's going on here. But as I said, it's irrational, and it's a gamble that if it fails badly for the world. And we have to be thinking in those terms. I mean, Iran's going to suffer. There's no doubt about it. But Iran does grow its own food. I mean, they do some importation, but Iran, has food. They have water. So Iran as a national society isn't going to disappear. But there are nations that will disappear. I mean, pretty much every Gulf Arab nation will disappear. They can't sustain their populations without water, without energy. And when it's gone, it's gone. Qatar's in a lot of trouble right now, because with a few well-aimed rounds, you can take away Qatar's ability to generate to produce liquid natural gas for a decade. They don't have reserves to last a decade. And if you take out, their desalinization plants, they don't have any water. You take out their energy, they got no energy. They're depopulated. United Arab Emirates, the same thing. Bahrain's a very big risk. Kuwait's a very big risk. Saudi Arabia's a very big risk. So I just think that Iran holds all the cards, that this is really one of the dumbest things that Donald Trump's ever done. But this is an act of desperation for him. Politics creates its own perceptions of reality, and his reality right now is driven by the fact that he could not only lose the House in November in the midterm elections, but he could lose the Senate. I mean, the death of Lindsey Graham, replaced by his sister. Is his sister really viable as re-election fodder? Do you not think that the Democrats are going to pull out all the dirt that's going to come out on Lindsey Graham between now and in November to diminish her viability, and who's going to replace? If the Republicans haven't been preparing to have somebody stand in for Lindsey Graham, the Democrats do have a challenger. They lose that seat, they're one vote closer to conviction. And if Donald Trump collapses the global economy and we have, the whole world falling apart, which is going to happen, people tend to forget that all it takes is a couple days of missed meals. At what point in time do people start getting desperate? I mean, right now here, if power goes out today, all right, I got a refrigerator, a freezer full of food. Power's out. I got a generator. I've got enough stuff. I can run my generator for a week. Then that's out. Well, I don't know. I'll cook the food. But the food's going to run out. I got some canned food, but it's going to run out. My dogs and cats keep looking at me, meowing and barking, saying, "Feed me, feed me." Well, Maverick may become lunch because I'll be desperate. I'll go to the store, but everybody else is going to the store. Now, I'll drive to the store initially because I've got gasoline in my car, but eventually my car's going to go empty and there's no gas. So now I'm walking to the store. Everybody's coming to the store, raiding the store because it's not going to be so we're fighting over the food in the store, killing people there. There'll be bodies stacked up. I'll be coming home, but it's going to be a 7-mile walk home from the store. I can only carry so much food, and there'll be people ambushing me the entire way. So I'm going to start ambushing my neighbors, launching raids against their house and all that. But they're going to be, I have to fortify this is what society is going to become. Trust me, it's human nature. And then people are going to gather together in groups, and they'll have a common group. And it's not going to be about the Constitution, rule of law. It's going to be about survival, basic survival. And that's the United States. What happens to places that lack this infrastructure? Again, we just go to Africa. When food isn't produced, water isn't come out, people starve to death. And when they starve to death, things start to happen. They get desperate. You're going to get migrations. Now, the migration takes care of itself over time because, 1 million people start marching, but they don't have enough food. People start falling aside, dying, but you're still going to get a couple 100,000 showing up where they want to go, and they're going to be desperate. They got one shot. There's no reasoning with them. They're coming over the wall. They're coming in. They don't care. They're dying. They're dead if they don't do this. This is the world. This is what's going to happen this fall if this happens. If we run out of fertilizer, we run out of the ability to grow food. So this is stupid. This is stupidity on the part of Donald Trump. This is the irrationality of this man.
Because there are people, military analysts or generals, suggesting that the next step for Donald Trump would be some sort of escalation, maybe invasion of some of these islands in the Persian Gulf. We had General McKenzie, we had Wesley Clark, we had Keith Kellogg, or all of them advocating for the same thing. And here is what Keith Kellogg said.
On President Trump to finish the job. What does that mean exactly, and what steps should he be taking to make sure this is not drawn out and that he can actually not have to take off the blockade, put it back on again, and be victorious in the end against the regime?
Yeah, when you look at it, the American people don't like tit for tat. You go in with half measures. They want to finish this job, completely finish it. And I think you can do it not just by kinetic action, which, I mean, we can bomb all the bridges we want or power plants we want, but it just hurts the Iranian people. What you can do, and I've said it repeatedly on air, is what you can do is take a couple of strategic targets. One, you can take Kharg Island. That's 80% of their economy, 90% of it. And you control it like we control your house. I know that means boots on the ground and the strategic target, but it's defendable. The island's 16 miles offshore. You can then hold it. You can open up the strait. You can take the islands in the Strait of Hormuz as well with your marine amphibious groups out there. You can take Lanark Island. You can take Geisham Island. You can take them all to cut down basically their ability to basically interdict the Gulf and the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. And I think we can open the strait. I think we can escort those vehicles through, and that's the thing they're counting on, that they can continue to hold the Strait of Hormuz. I think once we break that deadlock and ships are moving, then I think their ability to influence the action is gone.
Yeah, here is one of the part of the question is, Scott, because all of these attacks, if you look at the attacks, the targets in the southern part of Iran, in the western part of Iran, those people who are in favor of invasion or doing something underground, they're saying that the United States, the whole campaign is trying to diminish or reduce the Iranian capabilities in the southern and in the western parts. So as soon as they're not that powerful, the United States can do something in those regions. And here you heard what General Keith Kellogg said. What is your take on that?
What a stupid man, a fundamentally ignorant man. We just start with logistics. Logistics drives everything. Iran will be operating off our interior lines of communications, and the United States will be operating off of exterior lines of communications. Our lines of communication, that means the ability to supply and sustain whatever we're doing, is thousands of miles long. Iran's is whatever it takes to get to whatever depot that exists in there. 16 miles, the separation. Well, I mean, last time I checked the range of Iranian missiles, that means they have a tremendous amount of depth, strategic depth, to allow them to continuous bombardment of this place. He throws around the terms like marine amphibious ready groups as if, wow, that means something. It's 2 battalion landing teams, 2 battalions. When we did amphibious assaults in World War II, we had Red Beach 1, Red Beach 2, Red Beach 3, Red being a regiment, 3 battalions online, and we have green and, move on. Regimental landing teams, part of a division going ashore. This is 1 battalion going in. Keith Kellogg would do well to study that which he talks about. The last time we tried to do a forcible entry by battalion on an island, Grenada, I guess you could say, oh, that was a success. Let's say an island that was defended by competent defenders was Koh Tang Island in May of 1975. And the battalion landing team that went across got beat. We landed. We secured 2 beachheads, 3 if you count one desperate beachhead that was temporarily there because a helicopter got shot down and the crew formed a perimeter, and that became a beachhead until they got evacuated. And then we had to evacuate the one because it was indefensible. The third one was about to get overrun. We had to evacuate them, and we left 3 Marines behind who got captured and executed. That's like a great outcome compared to what could happen at Kharg Island, where we could lose the entire battalion. And then what do we reinforce them with, Keith? Put the Marines on the ground. It's a battalion, Keith. 500, 600 Marines. We can reinforce them with it and get them up to 800 maybe. Then what? They're going to start to die, Keith. Where's the reserves? The second BLT? But I thought you said you want to take Kharg Island and some other islands. Are you just going to generate battalion landing teams? Let's just create them out of thin air. Can't do that, Keith. That's not how it works. We got 2 right now. Now, what, you're going to bring in some paratroopers? Airborne! Geronimo! Jump out of the airplane and die. let's say they land on the ground. At least the Marines come in with some sort of logistics sustainability. They have a logistics unit that is attached to the MU. Paratroopers, yay! They land on the ground. They got what they brought with them, which ain't much. They shoot through their basic load. What, you're gonna bring in more stuff and drop it to them? But how can you if you're getting shot down? I mean, let's go to Koh Tang Island. 8 out of the 11 helicopters that went in on the initial wave were either shot down, destroyed, or damaged so bad they couldn't be brought into action. 8 out of 11. What's Keith Kellogg talking about? He doesn't know what he's talking. Let me make it as clear as possible. If we could have taken Carg Island, we would have taken Carg Island. But we didn't take Carg Island because we can't take Carg Island. No matter how much Wesley Clark or Pete McKenzie or Keith Kellogg want to sit there and talk about drawing big arrows on the map, it ain't going to happen. If it could have happened, it would have happened. The other thing I want to talk about is just reality. We being the United States of America, don't have that much military force anymore. The day of generating 750,000 troops for Desert Storm, because that's what we generated to do Desert Storm, is over. The day of generating 250,000 troops for Operation Iraqi Freedom, was called Operation Iraqi Liberation, but then people went, wait, that's oil. We're not fighting for oil. We'll fight for oif. And so we did that. We can't do that. We don't have the force structure anymore. We struggle to get 5,000 soldiers ginned up to send to Europe as part of the rotational brigades. Our military isn't designed to be expeditionary in nature. We have some units that can do some expeditionary moves, but to get our military up to speed, we still have a situation where our divisions, I think it's 1/3 and sometimes more of our division are reserve or National Guard forces that have to be spun up, trained up, and then attached. There's a reason why in Desert Storm we didn't have any Army National Guard or Army Reserve units, brigade-sized forces fighting, because they couldn't get spun up. The Marines did because we trained for that all the time. But now if we want to get people up, we're going to have to take a lot of time to get units mobilized, put together, trained up, and brought in. How do we deploy them? With what resources? Desert Storm, we flowed in troops by aircraft. They landed at permissive airfields. Just take a look at what's happening right now. Iran can shut down airfields. You really think we're just going to be flying in C-117 or C-17s in to discharge tens of thousands of troops on an airfield that's getting bombarded by missiles? No. So where do we land them? You have to land them further away, which means you now have to bring them closer. That's a logistical problem. You have to build up the logistics for this. But that's also susceptible to being attacked by Iranian forces. Ports. There's not going to be a port operating normally. First of all, half the ports we used were inside the Persian Gulf. You had to go through the Strait of Hormuz to get to those ports. That's not going to happen. The ports that we'll go into will be subjected to attacks. General Berger, the former Commandant of the Marine Corps, recognized this in 2019, I think, when he issued his, or might have been after that, issued his Commandant's guidance that said we can't accomplish the missions given to us by the Secretary of Defense because we are married to a legacy system that is no longer sustainable given the realities of modern warfare. That we put all our Marines, all our eggs into one basket, the USS AAA or whatever, and we sail it towards the enemy shores. Now, normally we park it off, and then the Marines would disembark and land the landing team, and off they go, and they seize the beach. But now as they approach, they're not even going to get to the point where they start discharging their Amtraks. They're going to get hit by a missile, sunk, and we lose all the Marines. This is the reality. The reality is we can't do this. The last time Donald Trump thought about ginning up this kind of forces was in 2019 or 20, when the Global Hawk was shot down, the drone. And he said, I'm going to bomb those Iranian air defense systems. And the Pentagon went, you do that, and they're going to escalate by shelling. Then what are you going to do? I'm going to do this. Then they're going to do this. They're going to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. No, sorry, sir, you can't take it. We don't have the force. We knew then we couldn't take the Strait of Hormuz. That's sort of the funny thing. We knew then we couldn't take the Strait of Hormuz. He said, what will it take to take? We're going to have to mobilize 190 to 250,000 troops. It's going to take 9 months to a year and a half to do that. Wow, maybe it's not worth it. We still have that problem. And then we're not just talking about the Strait, we're talking about an even bigger problem. So we'd have to mobilize 500,000 Americans to do this job. Keith Kellogg, how are we going to do that? Where are they coming from, Keith? Because I just do the math. We don't have them. And if we did that, it's the same problem with Taiwan. You know that there is no Taiwan contingency plan, op plan for Taiwan. At least there wasn't. What everybody said is when the time comes, we'll take the Korean contingency plan and sort of swap it over to Taiwan. What happens if North Korea decides to play games while you're playing games in Taiwan? All the forces allocated to go to Korea are playing the Taiwan game. There are no forces allocated. We'll swap them over from the European contingency plans. What happens if Russia decides to play ball now? We got nothing. What happens if Iran? See, we used to be able to fight 2.5 major wars. When I was in, we could fight 2.5 major wars. We could fight a major war in Europe, we could fight a major war in the Pacific, and we could do a holding action in the Middle East until we won one of those 2 wars. We diverted forces and do that. 2.5 wars. Very expensive to do that. Today, we can't fight 1 war. We can fight a half a war. That's it. We can fight a half a war. Because this isn't a war with Iran. This is a military action. It's warlike, but it's not a war. Because what are we doing? If there's a war, we're going to invade, occupy Iran. That's what we do at war. We defeat the enemy. We don't have the resources to do that. We don't have the resources to do that anywhere in the world. We are combat incapable because we have defined the world as our playing field. We say, this is our playing field. And we tell everybody, we have supremacy to fight you. Maybe we do, but we're proving we don't. With Iran, we certainly don't have supremacy. They're holding their own. But we can't do Iran at the same time we do something else. If something else were to kick up, we can't do it. If China decided today, which they won't, well, we're going to take Taiwan. We have zero capacity to defend. If North Korea came across the border, we can't do anything. We can't reinforce. We got nothing. Zero. And Keith Kellogg's talking about what? Putting some battalion landing teams on some islands that are going to die. And then what? And then what? These generals, they shouldn't be allowed on TV and carry the title general. Because when they say general, people go, oh, he's a general. He's smart. He knows. He's been there. He's done that. Keith Kellogg got a Silver Star, I think, running out and grabbing a wounded guy in Vietnam. Tells you everything you need to know about it. I'm not saying that he's not brave. Obviously, he was. But he's in Vietnam running out getting a wounded guy in a war that we lost. And now he's going to sit here and talk tough about winning a war if we just show the resolve. That's the problem with these generals with Vietnam pedigrees. They believe that we could have won if we just showed the resolve. They don't understand that we could never have won Vietnam because it was an unwinnable war, because we were on the wrong side of history, and we were trying to do things that couldn't be done militarily. War is an extension of politics by other means, but the politics is the most important component of it. And the politics of Vietnam sucked, and the politics of the Persian Gulf sucked. They shouldn't be allowed to say, I'm a general, because that, to the ignorant masses watching, they go, oh, the guy knows what he's talking about. I wish I could debate Keith Kellogg. I would run the field. I wish I could debate Wesley Clark. I'll debate all 3 of them together. Get McKenzie, Clark, and Keith Kellogg. There'll be a whole bunch of stars there, 4, 8. There's 10 stars. 10 stars against me, little major oak leaf clusters. I'll wipe their board because they are there to shape perception by telling lies. I'm here to tell the truth. The whole truth, nothing but the truth, however uncomfortable it's going to be. We can't do anything Keith Kellogg said we could do, and he knows it, but he's willing to sit there and lie to you because his job is to lie to you, because his job is to generate clicks and views. He's a media whore today. That's all he is. How much money you pay me to be on your show, Dima?
Nothing.
None. You know how much money I make coming on your show? None. All right. He makes money every appearance he gives. His job is to make himself viable to go on shows and make money. These are media whores. These people aren't interested in telling the truth. They're just interested in getting their faces out there to create perceptions, to create storylines, narratives that allow them to continue to get their faces out there. Every single one of them is a liar.
Yeah. Scott, Donald Trump, Axios reported that Donald Trump supported Saudi Arabia's operation in Yemen because you know that the siege in Yemen was broken by Iranian airplane. Then Saudi Arabia hit the runway of the Sana'a International Airport, and Yemenis retaliated, attacking one of the air bases in Saudi Arabia and Abha international airport.